Hey everyone, Ashley May and Mike Beer here with the Daily Racing Form, taking a look at the race of the day for this Thursday, which comes out at Keeneland. It's race number 7, kicking off the final pick 3 on their card, and it's an interesting event. And Wednesday, we talked about a 5.5 furlong turf sprint, but Mike, here we have a 1.5 mile here, a second level allowance for the older colts and geldings, and it's a big field. You have 12 entered in here, and felt like what makes it tricky is the distance. A lot of horses in here do not have experience at a 1.5 miles, and you have to wonder if they're going to be able to stretch out in distance. And maybe if they do have a 1.5 miles under their belt, it's probably not on the turf for many of them. It might be at Turfway Park with that distance series over the winter.
It feels like that really is going to be the deciding factor here. Who gets the 1.5 miles? Who really relishes it? Let's just say that. And it's another race too. It's just sort of wide open on the board here. You don't really have a clear cut favorite. Tucson is 5-2 on the morning line to number 3. That's Pletcher, first time turf. And stretching all the way out in distance. So much working against that horse to be wanting to take some kind of short price on him.
Yeah, especially 5-2. You talked about stretching out. Having to go on the turf, but the fact that you look at his efforts, the buyers are flashy, but that doesn't necessarily translate. Now, another key part of this is the pace with these 1.5 mile races, and the pace will be faster on the slower side. As we take a look at the time form U.S. pace projections, it actually suggests maybe a fast pace in here. You talked about the 3 Tucson is stretching out, the number 7 Legree here, a horse that I don't, know necessarily what sort of trip he's going to get, because in his turf races, he's typically closing from off of it, Mike. But on the dirt, he's been more forward. He does get blinkers on, and then more towards the outside, the 10 Freedom's Way. I think it's safe to say he will be in the mix early. I'm not sure if he'll be on the lead, but I do think he might be pressing things.
Yeah, listen, I'm not sure that I'll agree that this pace is going to be fast, but I guess we'll see how it plays out, how these riders decide to go early in this race, taking the 1.5 miles on. We already talked about it, so many horses stretching out here, Ashley. I doubt a lot of these riders are going to want to get aggressive, but it would be nice to see, some horses go forward. If the plan with Tucson is to send that horse to the lead, it would be nice to see some horses go with them and don't just turn them loose.
The late pace flag is attached to the 2. You don't even see him here on the projection, but that's Mutaweed here for Michael Maker, who does have experience last out at a 1.5 miles. So he might need that pace help. And I think it's a little, fast pace. It's very relative in 1.5 miles. It might be a touch quick, but it still might be on the slow side. The 1 King Curlin is going to kick things off here. This one trained by Brittany Vandenberg, was 7th last time out, tried the 1.5 miles, and this one has experience at a 1.5 miles, actually has a win, at a longer distance. It came at Gulfstream Park back on January 1st of 2024. My concern, Mike, would be the recent form. There's not a whole lot there that suggests this horse is sort of on the improve and getting better.
I'm worried about that too. Then the more I looked at him, I sort of felt like I wanted to pick that apart a little bit, because he's 20-1 on the morning line, actually, and he's clearly got races that make him competitive in here. And if he's that kind of a price, I'll probably just use him, because if you want to pick him apart, they just kept running him in stakes races after the 1.5 mile win, and let's be honest, he's just not a stakes horse. They ran him at Kentucky Downs in September in a $2 million race. I mean, he had no chance in there. And then his first 2 starts back off the layup this year on a totally different surface that he doesn't have to love. I mean, I don't know, getting back to turf, 1.5 miles, which we already know that he can get, 20-1, back in the right kind of a spot finally. I could make a case for this horse.
Yeah, you look at some of the names he faced: Silverknot, Segoy, Highway Robber, Grand Sonata, Johnny's Fireball, just deeper than what he's going to face this Thursday. The 2 Motuweed, will show his most recent performance at Gulfstream Park. We mentioned it came at the 1.5 mile distance. It was his first time at a 1.5 mile, but he was fresh off a win at 1 mile and 3/8, and they went a little bit quicker, honestly, early on, and he was further back, and not sure what to do with that sort of analysis, right? That they went quicker, but they were also going longer. He was rolling late, though. You can't miss him in here. He is going to finish 4th. He only misses by a length and 3/4. And I thought it was a good performance. I think he'll need to take a step up from there. But his recent form, he seems like he's really gotten better since going to the barn of Michael Maker.
Yeah, we've seen this from Maker a million times in the past, where he claims horses and stretches them out to longer distances, and they all of a sudden improve. That's sort of his MO. This horse was really impressive, I thought, when he won 2 starts back from off the pace. It seemed like maybe a weaker field, but I liked the way that he won it. I wasn't quite as taken with that race that we just watched there, Ashley. I mean, I felt like he was in position to be, right there at the end of that race, and he just wasn't. He wasn't as good as the runner-up. I didn't love that he got outfinished from behind for 3rd at the end there. But listen, the winner of that race is actually pretty good. So I don't know. I could go either way on this horse. He was one I wanted to wait and see what kind of price he was.
The 3 Tucson, we talked about a 5-2 morning line favorite, has won his last 2, but they've been on the Tapeta. He's going to have to stretch out, and he's going to have to tackle the turf for the first time. And he's working well. He's always worked well when you look at his workouts. I don't want to read into it too much, Mike. I guess my concern is the price on him. It's 5-2, and I feel like it just feels like too short to take him on top, especially when I know there's some horses, especially more towards the outside of the starting gate, that they have good turf for him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is the whole thing here. I mean, listen, if he shows up here and he runs the 98 or maybe even the 90 Beyer speed figure that he ran last time, he probably beats this field. But he has to do that on a totally different surface, stretching out to 1.5 miles. And I don't know. That's kind of dicey to take a short price, at least in my opinion, on a horse like that. Pletcher, he's one of the guys, you don't worry about him stretching horses out to longer distances. He seems to have a really good idea of which horses want to go long. And so I'm sure stretching out will probably work out for this horse. But I still don't want to take a short price on him.
The 4 Safe Trip Home, this one for Doug Collins, was 7th last time up, was able to find the winner's circle for the second time, 2 starts back with a nice 81 Beyer. The pace wasn't all that quick at Turfway Park. He was close to it, made the late run, and drew clear in there. And I don't know what to take away out of his next performance because he took a lot of play in there, Mike. He went off as the favorite and just never got going from the back of the pack. And part of me wonders if it just was a bad race where he just didn't show up on race day or he couldn't keep up early. I'm not sure how to assess it.
I agree. I didn't like his last race at all. We'll see if he can rebound from it. I guess, for a horse who's 30-1 on the morning line, maybe you don't want to spend too much time trying to make excuses for it and just say, I like some of his prior races, and so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Personally, I don't really like his prior races and didn't want to bet him in here.
The 5 Trey Souls here. This one switched barns between 2024 and 2025. Probably needed the race in January, but has gotten better with each of those starts. Most recently on the turf at the fairgrounds. I didn't mind that effort. Not really sure what he beat in that starter allowance, but I thought it was a good race from him. Nice to see him back in the winner's circle. And it's obvious his turf races are some of his best. I just wonder about how far he wants to go.
I agree with that. I thought he was sort of an interesting long shot in this race, so I threw him in there. Like you, I thought his win last time was good when they got him back on the turf. I know he's been showing speed for Actress in his recent starts, but he's also shown that he's effective sitting just off the pace if he has to do that here, if the pace is faster. I don't know if he wants to go this far, but I do like some of his turf races, and he's going to be a really big price in here.
The 6 Verbals 15-1 on the morning line. And this is a horse I sort of keep on going back to that I wish I probably would have put in my top 4. I'll be honest, I didn't. But the turf races, by far his turf races, I think are better than his races that we've seen at Turfway Park. But his Turfway Park races are fine as well. He probably needed the return to the races on February 12th. He came back, was able to win gate to wire, I think in terms of the time early. He did what he needed to do. It wasn't very quick, but it also wasn't slow. And he has experience at 1.5 miles, and he has a little versatility. Obviously, the day that he won 1.5 miles, they went pretty slow, but the winner, Utah Beach, is not a bad horse.
Yeah, it seems like, I'm not sure about the 1.5 miles with this horse either, but he's certainly got the talent to go with these horses, and we'll see how aggressive they get with him here. That 1.5 mile race here last April, boy, it felt like Gaffalion wanted to sit there. They had a long shot on the lead early in there. It felt like they wanted to track him, and Verbal had other ideas, and he just sort of pulled Gaffalion up to the lead. They opened a big lead up the backstretch, and then he got pretty tired in the stretch there. He's talented enough to win here. The 1.5 miles is a question, but he's another horse at a price I could use somewhere.
The 7 Legree here gets blinkers on, was closing last time out at the fairgrounds to rally to finish 3rd, but was pretty far back. And we talked about it in terms of the time form US pace projections. I know this horse has been forward on the dirt, and I wonder if that's also been by design in some of those races, right? When they get washed off the grass, you go on the dirt. A lot of the horses that stay in, maybe a handful of them like the dirt or they're okay over it. The others are just staying in maybe because they need a race or something like that, and it's not their surface. And I just think for that reason, when I look at the wood chopper, I look at the race in January, I think they just went because no one else is probably going to go, and they thought it was their best chance, especially over an off track. And I don't know if he'll be forward. The blinkers suggest he might, but I don't know what trip he'll get, but I do think he's an intriguing type off the last out.
Yeah, I agree with your take on him. The way that you laid it out, I think, is perfect. When you go on dirt, you sort of want to be more forward in dirt races, but when this horse runs on the grass, they're way more patient with him. And I think that's probably how they'll ride him here. I actually like him better as a turf horse than a dirt horse. I don't know. He's another one. I don't know if he wants to go this far, Ashley, but there are some things to recommend him in here, especially if the pace is solid.
I think that's a common theme when we talk about horses stretching out. You see them with like a late turn of foot on the turf. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, they want to go longer. It doesn't necessarily mean that when there's no pace in front of them, they might not be able to close. So 10-1, he is a little intriguing. The 8, Deuteronomy, up next for Shug McGahee. We'll take a look at his most recent effort, which was on February 15th at Tampa. And I thought this was a good effort. I think when we compare him to others in here about the distance, I just wonder if he's going to get the trip where he's not going to be, 10 or 15 off of it early, where he's sitting maybe 6 lengths off of it, he's in a better position, and then he can make the late run, similarly to what we saw in this race.
Yeah, I agree with you. He can get the right trip in here. And he's one too. I mean, you don't know until they do it, but he's certainly got the pedigree to stretch out. He's a kitten's joy. His dam was a really good long distance turf horse, graded stakes kind of long distance turf horse. So he's supposed to be able to get this far on pedigree. And listen, I like all 4 of his turf starts. I think he's run well each and every time, but he's another horse who you don't know that he wants to go this far. And he's going to be one of the favorites in this race. So it's your call how short you want to go on him as far as price.
The 9, Quattrocento, up next for Fausto Gutierrez, was able to pick up back-to-back wins. Now, one was back in August at Gulfstream, came back in late March, was able to win off the long layoff, took a step forward in terms of figs as well. And you just wonder, based on the pace of both of those races in the early fractions, if this one could be closer to things in the early stages of this race.
Yeah, I think he probably can, especially when you watch the way that he's been ridden in those races. I mean, they really take a hold of this horse early on to get him settled, and I think they want him covered up as well. Listen, he's got a lot to prove here. The distance is the big factor. I think class is a big consideration too, whether he can go with these horses. But that turf race, the win in last August before the layoff, I don't know how he won that race, but he came with a huge finish to just get up that day, and he got a good trip last time, but he smashed that field. This horse, he might be pretty good.
The 10, Freedom's Way, has tried a mile and a 16th in the 2 outings so far in 2025. And curious to get your thoughts. He's 10-1 on the morning line, so he's priced. He's not a huge price, but my concern with the distance would be based on those last 2. I feel like they've made sort of a, I don't want to say an early move, but a somewhat early move. It looks like he's going to kick on, and then he stalls, and everyone else is traveling better.
Yeah, I agree with you. And he's another one too. I think everybody else in this race, or not everybody else, but several of his rivals in here are way more lightly raced. They have way more upside than he does, and could take that step forward that it doesn't feel like is really going to be available to Freedom's Way in this race. He's got to prove that he can get the distance as well. Listen, I don't want to knock him too much because I think his good race gives him a real chance in here, but I just wanted to bet other horses.
The 11 Raptors for Mark Cassey has made 2 starts since June of 2023. Now, one was at Woodbine, where I feel like he technically did face some tough horses in there, tougher than, when you try to assess him elsewhere. I think it was a tough field. Now, you look at his next start at Gulfstream, I also think it was a tough field. Seminole Chief came back to win next time out. Atone has been a horse to watch over the last several years, and Calic has been a little bit, bobbing and weaving in terms of good performances and bad ones, but I don't know how to assess him. He's just making that 3rd start. He's been here a really long time. Now you can see he's being listed as a gelding for the first time. I just don't think I want any part of him at 8-1.
Just a really tough read here. They haven't been able to get him going since he arrived in North America. Listen, his final 2 starts in Brazil, Group 1 wins, going a mile and a half. You don't have to worry about distance with this horse, but you never know what they're facing in those races in South America. And so far, he's done nothing up here off a long layoff in this race. He's a new gelding. The distance is no issue for him. I don't think I'd be shocked if he ran well in here, Ashley. I'm probably not going to bet him.
I just wonder about being ready to go a mile and a half. Not that he can't do it like you've talked about. He has experience doing it. But you can see his workout tabs. They were working him. Then they didn't work him at all for 2 months, and he just has those 3 breezes coming into here. They're pretty spaced out as well. But maybe he's an older horse. Maybe he doesn't need sort of going to the tracks every 7 to 9 days. The 12, Agent Creed, is going to round things out here. A 7-year-old son of Jimmy Creed, who's able to win 2 starts back at the fairgrounds. Got a very nice trip, a comfy trip on the lead where they just walked the dog early, Mike. And then you see him next time out, Trey Souls was just simply better than him in that spot. And just really worried. I mean, what sort of trip is he going to get here at 1.5 miles? If you're going to send him to the lead, I just don't think they're going to go slow enough.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do from post 12, because there was a time, if you go way back in his PPs, I remember this horse being in New York where he was a dead closer. They would take him back and he'd make one run. They don't ride him like that anymore. I'm actually a fan of this horse. He's really reliable and consistent. He'll always show up and give a really solid effort, but I also never thought of him as a horse who wanted more distance.
We'll see. You go down the pages. I mean, he's tried 1 mile and 3/16, but that's pretty much it. 1.5 miles is obviously way further than that. So top pick time here for the Thursday race of the day at Keeneland. Don't forget, free past performances, and certainly going to need to do your homework on this race. It's just really tough with so many question marks around horses. And you'll go to the 9 Quattro Cento, who's just been very good in those last two and is ready to roll off the long layoff.
Yeah, we'll see. Distance, I'm really concerned that he's not going to want to go this far. But I just like his last two starts. This was the kind of race where I just felt like I didn't want to settle for the shorter prices in this race. I wanted to look around for somebody who could maybe drift a little bit. Maybe it's the 9.
6-1 gets Frankie Dettori booked to ride. I go to the 8 Deuteronomy. I just think those last several, you talked about it, all the turf efforts, they're very, very good. And just wonder if he can handle the stretch out in distance. But use prices underneath, Mike. Use the 5 Trey Souls as well as the 6 Verbal, which I think there are cases to be made for both of them.
Yeah, I agree. It's that kind of race, right? I mean, trip is obviously going to be very important to a lot of these horses, and who gets the 1.5 miles, who knows? But I just felt like, again, I was trying to fade the shorter prices and get some better prices in that.
And I'll use the 2 underneath in the exact. I just thought this horse maybe had some upside. Second time going 1.5 miles in consecutive starts. I agree. I don't necessarily love his performance last time out, but the 1 mile 3 ace was very good 2 starts back. 9-8-5-6 for Mike, 8-2-3-7 for me. It's the start of the late pick 3 this Thursday at Keeneland, race number 7. Good luck.